that Fulton County requires you to disclose any relationship with someone that you're doing business with?
I'm not aware, and I know often that things are confused with state constitutional officers in county, but I'm not aware.
Okay, so it's your understanding that you don't have a duty to disclose the relationship.
She's answered that question. Let's keep going.
We the people of the United States.
More perfect.
Your form of our perfect union.
Heritage legal expert Hans von Spakovsky.
Hans, I think when we were talking to you last week, we kind of had heard some of the earlier testimony in this trial, but Fani Willis had not yet taken the stand. And boy, did she come in a blaze of glory or something to take that witness stand.
Boy, she did. And look, I think I may have told you, I had heard privately from people who actually work for Fulton County government that she is an arrogant diva inside the office. And boy, didn't that come across in the way she basically, instead of answering questions, argued with the lawyers and accused them of wrongdoing, all the kind of things that as a witness you are not allowed to do. And yet the judge, except for a couple times saying, well, I may have to strike your testimony, he let her get totally out of control. And I can't tell you how disappointed I was in the judge not doing anything about it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about her behavior, the position that judge is in. I'm not aware of courtroom I guess attitude and the way that it's supposed to be handled, but it seems like every time I've taken stuff in, there's so much respect and decorum that is supposed to take place because It's incredibly intense, the situation. There's a lot at stake in, every court trial that takes place. Did she get more leash because of who she is? Was it on the judge because he was weak about it? What do you make of the decorum?
The judge was weak on it. The fact that she's a prosecutor should not give her any leeway to act in the outrageous way that she acted in the courtroom. It was his job to get her under control, even if that meant not only threatening her with contempt, but finding her in contempt and fining her for do that. For much less outrageous behavior, keep in mind that Donald Trump has been fined in cases. Certainly in the New York case, he was fined anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 by the judge for behavior that I think wasn't anywhere close to as bad as the behavior of Fani Willis in court.
Why would the judge have been so lenient?
I don't understand it. Now, I've seen a report just recently that, in fact, he was a political contributor to Fani Willis when she ran for office, which, frankly, he should have recused himself. He should have taken him out of that case. I don't think he should have remained on the case if he was a political contributor to her.
We're speaking with Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Every single time we cover these stories, there are, it seems like, conflicts of interest like this, and it makes me ask myself, well, maybe you can't avoid all conflicts of interest. I would hope that you could. Do you think that the judge takes in the post-game coverage of that trial, criticism of the way he handled it? Does any of that affect the way the judge does his job?
Well, there was someone that once famously said that Supreme Court justices do read the editorial pages of the Washington Post and the New York Times, so it's hard to imagine that it might not influence him. I just hope that he understands that he has got an obligation to the judicial system to do the right thing here, and it was very obvious from the testimony that not only have Fani Willis and Nathan Wade been lying to the courts, but many of their other actions are clearly unethical, unprofessional, and neither she nor Nathan Wade nor anyone in her office should be on this case.
Hans, when I think a lot of people look at this and they don't understand the legal system in many ways that I don't understand it or don't know what to anticipate, which is why we have you on. If Fani loses or is disqualified from this case, people will think, okay, well, Donald Trump wins, but it's not that simple. What's at stake in the ruling that will come from this judge?
Well, I think this ruling will determine whether an extremely biased, partisan, political hack remains the prosecutor in this case. And I hate to use that kind of language, but she has shown that throughout this entire case. What the judge needs to do is dismiss her and her entire office from handling it and follow Georgia case law, which says that in situations like this, you recuse the entire office of a prosecutor and you transfer the case to another county where that district attorney can re-examine the case and determine whether it should be continued. That's what ought to happen in this case.
We're speaking with Hans von Spakovsky with the Heritage Foundation, a senior legal fellow there. I understand that you're at CPAC right now. Is that true?
I am. If you just heard a little bit of background noise, yes, because I'm at CPAC and it's pretty busy here, and there's a lot of people attending.
That's good. That's good that there's that interest level there. I wanted to talk about one of the things that Donald Trump said. I don't know if you watched the town hall that he had with Laura Ingraham, but she said she asked him at one point, is there ever a time where you just want to say, I've had enough, I quit? And his quick response was, I can't. I want to make America great again. When I compare what's been levied against him in the E. Jean Carroll case, and I add in the New York City fraud case and the punitive damages, the way that they're attacking him, watching Letitia James. I don't know why she's always whispering when she's in these interviews, but it's the weirdest thing to take in. Talking about how she looks at 40, whatever his building is in New York City every day. It's actually kind of sick to take in how much they need to get Donald Trump. I understand why he'd want to quit, but he says he doesn't want to. I don't understand how we get, even if he wins in November, how does the justice system start serving justice once again and not a political party?
Boy, I tell you, that's going to be very tough. The good thing is that if he comes in as president, he will have control over the U.S. Justice Department, and the U.S. Justice Department needs a clean sweep from top to bottom. There are many, many lawyers there, and frankly, many individuals within the FBI, which is part of the Department of Justice, who need to be terminated. They need to be shown the door. And there's all kinds of reforms that need to go on there to stop what has happened with DOJ and the FBI, which is engaging in, frankly, political investigations and political prosecutions. Look, we just saw a great example of the dual system of justice that has come in. That special report on Joe Biden says that he willfully retained classified materials after he left office. That is exactly
Vice
the
President.
same thing.
The Vice President office. Yeah.
Yeah, the Vice President.
And Senate.
That is exactly the same thing that Donald Trump is being criminally prosecuted for under the Espionage Act, and yet the recommendation is that after Biden leaves office, he not be prosecuted. Come on, that shows you the kind of dual system we have going on.
It is outrageous, and Americans on both sides of the aisle should be outraged that anybody who's in power can utilize the justice system in this way to hurt political opponents. I'm old enough to remember when the House Democrats impeached Donald Trump because they said that he was using that phone call with Zelensky to go after a political opponent. They impeached the president over that. They've emboldened the current president to do the same thing to his political opponent, and yet here we are. So you said that there are lawyers, there are people in the Justice Department, they need to be shown the door. Does the president of the United States have the ability to do that?
He has the ability to fire every single political appointee that Joe Biden has put in, and they ought to be out the door on the first day of a new president coming in. Getting rid of career lawyers, and there's some very bad ones at the Justice Department, that is much tougher. And frankly, one of the biggest things that Congress ought to do is reform the whole civil service system to get rid of many of the protections that make it impossible to fire career civil servants. Because let me tell you, many of the career lawyers I encountered when I was at the Justice Department considered themselves to just be an adjunct of their side of the political aisle, and they shouldn't be in the Justice Department.
Do you feel like Donald Trump has do you feel like that's something that he would want to do based on what you've heard him say? Should he be elected? Does he have the stones, so to speak, to go into the White House and take care of what needs to be taken care of?
Well, if he does if he fulfills his promises, yeah, I think he does, particularly given that he was at the wrong end
Yeah.
of so many problems, even when he was president, and you had bad people inside the FBI and the Justice Department, going after him for 2 years on what turned out to be a complete and total hoax.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was president for 4 years. I've heard a lot of people say, why didn't he take care of the Justice Department when he was president in his first term? Was he too soft on the bad apples that were in the Justice Department when he was in there in his first 4 years?
I think the problem was that there wasn't enough, frankly, background checking of individuals who were politically appointed. That's very tough for a president to do because he has several thousand political appointees. And I think next time, if he is elected president, he's going to be a lot more careful about who he puts into positions of power within the Justice Department and, frankly, other departments, too.
Yeah, Hans, I would imagine it'd be easier for him to kind of have that iron fist when he also isn't looking at the need or the necessity for re-election. He can kind of go in and take care of business.
That is always true, yes.
Hans, enjoy CPAC. We look forward to finding out about your experience there next week. Thanks for being with us today.
Sure thing. Anytime.